one of the biggest questions I've been trying to answer is, why is Jesus Christ like the only way to understanding God? And for a long time, I rejected this idea that Jesus Christ would be the only way. There's so many different perspectives on life and so many different ways that people get to know God, and so many different levels to our individual experiences. How could one path be the only way to God, right? And this is kind of something that I just didn't agree on for a really long time. I didn't see Jesus Christ as being the only way, and now I do. And so I wanted to bring some light to maybe that jump, or if you're in that place of trying to understand why would people even perceive Jesus Christ as being the only way to God. So this is just food for thought. I'm not trying to change your opinion on anything. I'm just introducing these new concepts simply as a reflection practice, because I've made such significant jumps personally in my opinion about this, and I figured it would be helpful for others to maybe share how I made that jump. So first and foremost, let's all recognize that there are some people who really do want to see God and understand God in their life, and they will go on a certain type of journey to even bring more of God into their life. Yet most of the time it's on our terms, meaning we want something or we want support in some way, and so we are seeking God's presence really as a validation of authority, meaning that we want God on our side in our journey because we want it to be successful, right? And so we might ask things like, well, God, I really want this, how can I get it? Or what do I need to do to get it? Rarely is it this surrender of our will to what God might want for us. So rarely is it this, okay, God, here's what I want, but that doesn't matter. Your will is more superior than mine, and I surrender to what you want for my life. That is very, very rare to find that type of attitude. And so when people are on this journey of wanting to integrate God into their life and wanting it on their terms, that's when you start to see a lot of this variation of God. And that's when you see this validation for the idea that there are multiple paths to God, right? It's because we all want it to fit into our box of expectations and desires and how we think the world should work. And so you have a variety of gods to choose from, or a variety of versions of gods to choose from, to fit into those variety of expectations or perceptions that we might have. But the biblical God is very different. The biblical God is more of this, it's this idea that there is a creator that knows way more than we do and has a plan that is far greater than we are. And this plan it has very little to do with what is seen. It has more to do with the unseen. And if you think about this, it's kind of impacting in the sense that our natural human mind is very focused on what we see and what we desire by sight. Rarely is it something more elevated or that taps into the unseen. Sure, we might want less stress, for example, or maybe we're desiring more harmony in a relationship or in a type of situation. However, what is the end goal? And most of the time, the end goal is some sort of gain for our personal self, our personal motive, our, again, personal expectation. You know, I'm using that word a lot because I feel that it's very relevant for a lot of people. When I say personal expectation, it's like we have this idea of how life should be or how we want life to be, and that creates expectations. So we get these attachments because of our perception. And we have to recognize, like, from a psychology standpoint, your brain is wired to be attentive to predictability and comfort. And life doesn't offer that. Life is constantly changing. And so it's very easy to get to this place of, like, wanting our comfort zone and fulfilling our expectations to meet that comfort, right? To meet that predictability. So this is our human nature. It's not like, I'm not talking about like this is some personal thing, like someone has a selfish intention, you know, consciously. Like, I don't see it like that. I see like our brain is just wired in this way. And so, you know, most humans are going to operate this way just because of how we're wired. And it takes a totally different level of conscious thinking and reflection to break beyond that. But that's what I kind of mean by like personal expectations. And we all have different types of comfort that we seek more based off of our childhood experiences and personality, and you know, maybe what we were surrounded by culturally growing up. Like, yes, there's tons of layers into that part of our personal expectations, which is why you would see like, oh, there's so many different paths to God, right? Because there's so many different types of personalities. But again, going back to this idea of the biblical God and how it's different, you know, the biblical God teaches, well, this God, this living God who actually responds to you and interacts with you, is not concerned about materialistic things. Instead, that God is concerned about where your heart is and what your intention is behind things. And to make that jump to even think about that stuff, as I've mentioned, goes beyond our human capability most of the time. To put others ahead of ourselves is not within our human nature. There's concepts in the Bible, like the number one concept in the Bible is love other people. Love your neighbor like you love yourself. And if you really think about the practical aspect of this, like putting this into practice, it's like, it's almost too tall of an order. It's almost too tall of an ask for us to accomplish on our own as humans. And again, that's from a psychology perspective. That's not even a personal opinion. You know, that's just reflecting on how we're wired as humans. It's like, even this discussion of altruism is debated in evolutionary psychology. Like, can you really be altruistic and do something genuinely for someone else without getting something in return? That's something people debate on, like, as to whether or not that's even within our psychological capability. So that's like psychology perspective, right? Now, the Bible is essentially saying, here's this dude, Jesus Christ. It is God in human form. And although he might be called the Messiah, the Son of God, the unblemished sacrifice, you know, at its distilled core, this is God in human form. Jesus was recognized as being sinless, meaning that, you know, sin is really just like another word for disconnection from God. So Jesus was completely yoked, completely connected with God, which is something as humans we can't even like fully comprehend, because again, this isn't within our human nature. So the Bible is saying, you know, again, here's this guy, Jesus Christ. Now, because of him, we have an understanding of what holiness is. Jesus Christ came and had all these teachings, And then he died, and then he was resurrected, and he appeared 12 different times over 40 days to a variety of witnesses. And the New Testament is a compilation of a lot of these witnessings while Jesus Christ was alive and while Jesus Christ was dead. And then there are letters and other, notes and writings about the reflection and integration of Jesus's teachings into these witnesses' lives. So that's like the New Testament. That's a majority of the New Testament. And so that's kind of like what it's saying, it's like, okay, now that we have a visual of who Jesus Christ is, we can have a window and a doorway into what God is, and what is that level of holiness, and what would that level of holiness look like to witness in our lives. So to get back to this like initial point, like, why would Jesus Christ be the only way to God? Well, if God was really trying to connect with us as humans, and he really did embody himself as a human being, don't you think like God would want some sort of acknowledgement of that? If you really are genuinely trying to connect with God, wouldn't paying attention to something like that be kind of important? And I believe that it is. I believe that it's like insanely important and insanely pivotal to think about the possibility that God came in human form. It's like, whoa, what did he say? What did he do? Like, you'd want to know. You could look at it like it's like a celebrity, right? You're like, I want to know the inside scoop. And that's kind of how I feel with this topic of Jesus Christ. It's like, I want to know the inside scoop. And so I've gotten very devoted in my Bible studies just because of that. But this is also part of the teaching, is that because now we have this example that is Jesus Christ, we have been reconciled to God. So before, our default was disconnection from God. Our human nature is to disconnect from God. Now, as we come to know Jesus Christ, we access this doorway of understanding what it's like to be holy. We also get a bunch of other messages that kind of empower our path. Like, if you have faith in this individual, then, things just work out. And there's this surrender of my will and what I want. And instead it's like, okay, God, what do you want? How can I live out what you want for my life? And that's a totally different level of engagement with God. When you really think about it, if you're wanting to connect with God, I mean, that's like an incredible act. Like, I recognize God is so real. I'm going to let him take control over my life. I don't see God in a tangible way with my eyes, but I have faith that he is so real. I'm going to surrender my life as his creation to him and just see what happens. What's going to happen? And that is where the magic happens. That is where magic fully comes in. And I say like magic because that's how it feels. It feels like it's like these miraculous experiences just coming out of thin air. And so that's what I mean by magic, is that it's just like, whoa, where did this come from? This is so beyond me and anything of this natural world and this natural order of the world that I'm familiar with. So that I feel that these are really important concepts to recognize. And then also there's tons of teachings that Jesus Christ brought and taught and displayed that I feel are also important in helping us embody God more. And if we want to get to know God, there's a certain aspect of us having to like see eye to eye with God. And I don't think we will ever get to that point as humans, like in this lifetime as human forms. seeing like eye to eye with God and understanding God's workings fully. But it's kind of like if you have a goal, right? If you want to optimize your health, for example, you have to have some vision towards what is it going to look like to be a healthier person. It's the same with spirituality. If you want to be more godly, be more holy, have God in your life, you have to have some vision of what that's even going to look like if you're going to come anywhere close to attempting to attain it. So this is just like pure goal orientation from the lens of psychology. So if you want to be a better person, you want to experience better things, you want to be happier, you want to be more peaceful, you want to be more joyful, you have to have like a roadmap for how to get there. And this is what Jesus teaches. And so I think that there's a lot of messages that are immediately discounted because people are like, well, they want to write off this idea that like Jesus is the only way to God. And so because they just write that idea off, they fail to take time to even look at what Jesus has taught, which is a huge disservice to yourself. And it is an attempt to validate the superiority of your perception, your human views, your human expectations over something that could be beyond you. There are many arguments for why people might do this. I think one of the most thought-provoking one for me has been that people don't want to be held to a moral standard. They don't want to be told that they're materialistic or selfish or that they're not doing enough to manage these things. They don't want to face and grapple that reality. Instead, they want the new car, they want the fancy house, they want the nice products, they want all the things that they see on social media, and they want the fame, they want the attention, the followers, the likes. And having any type of moral standard in your life is going to make you question those aims. It will also really show that those aims are not of value. And when we get attached to these materialistic things, we take it like, oh, I'm being told I can't have that. And we really want it. And so people just like want to push it away because of that. Well, I really want this new car. I really want all these followers, so that can't be right. So I could go on, I guess, but those are my main thoughts. I do believe at this point that, Jesus Christ is the main way to knowing God. Oh, another concept is like when you're focused on these materialistic things, when you die, because you're focused on these materialistic things and that is your world, when you die, you have to let go of everything you thought your world was. And that's why death is so scary to a lot of people. It's because they've centered their entire life around all of these things that they have to let go of and part with. And so death carries a sting with it. But if you're focused on God and connecting with God and having a holy experience in your life, you start to realize that none of this matters. The car, the shoes, the followers, the items, anything you could acquire in this life really doesn't matter. What you start to witness, though, is like how your heart changes, how you feel more peace, how you're happier, you feel more hope, you're able to connect with people more easily, you have more compassion. These things start to grow, and you start to witness how this is what matters. And Jesus Christ taught and was an example of how he focused on those things in his life. He died, and then he came back and was resurrected and said, I'm about to go sit down at the right hand of the throne of God right now. And so pay attention, you know, basically to like what I've taught you, because you can do this too. You can also go and sit down at the right hand of the Creator if you want, but it's going to take letting death lose its sting. You can't get there until after you die. But there's a certain like type of hope with that once you die, that's not it. That's not the end. And I know I've mentioned this in another video that I did, that like when people have near-death experiences, they get to see that portal. They die medically, physically, yet their internal consciousness and experience goes far beyond that and actually sees real life. And they say it feels like they're waking up when they die. They're waking up into reality. So this is just food for thought. Let me know what you think. Tell me if you have resistances or you don't resonate with this stuff. I'm really here to just be a support for people's spiritual process. And, you know, I'm not here to like force my opinions and beliefs on people. I want to start conversations about this stuff, and it can be like real authentic conversations. You know, there's no stupid questions. It's just about having like an open dialogue about this. So if you have any resistances, concerns, questions, inspirations, I love to hear them. Let me know.